Matt, when you just kind of diagnosed the last couple minutes of that game, just what kind of came to mind, and kind of combining that with UCLA, the way opponents have been able to
Yeah.
finish on runs, is that anything that's cause for some self-introspection or anything?
Yeah, no question. Obviously, we, didn't finish both games the way we would like to. Both of them a little bit different. Obviously, we had some breakdowns. What you see in the Illinois game there at the end defensively is what we wanted to stay away from. That's why we went to switching. And now, where I didn't do a good job is really talking to our guys like after we switch about the help, and then being able to size to press up, which is a really hard thing to do with a talented player. But I just watched how they played, and it was just such hit and miss against people. And I just don't like sitting there saying, man, I just hope good shooters miss. And so now we accomplished what we wanted in terms of that part of it, of knocking that out and not allowing that to happen. And then when we adjusted in the game and went to it, when they make 4 threes at the end of the game by 4 different people, that's what we wanted to stay away from. So that was our decision, to not have 2 on the ball, to be able to do that. But I didn't do a good enough job of, the responsibilities in the gap help, responsibilities as low help, like when they just went and got those easy layups on drives. Like those were things that wasn't really on 5X, because that's tough. It was really on the help and the understanding, because a couple times our guys are there and they're not on guys that we would ultimately just stay with. They were on guys that are good shooters, but didn't have great percentages, and we wanted to get that ball stopped in those scenarios. So that's something that when you go back to it and look at it, but that's why we didn't want to get to our regular ball screen defense of knocking it out, getting to the hedge, not letting them get into the paint. But then you're going to get into rotations, and rotations are pretty tough for our team. UCLA, we get at the end there, and we did some switching, and when you don't get the hedge that you want, you got to switch it. When you get the hedge that you want, now you're going to have a better chance of getting back to your man. We don't get the hedge that we want. We don't get the rotation at the end, which we got a handful of times during the course of the game where we rotate out from our low man, and then we didn't get that also. Then that's just a read to be able to see it. So, we got to clean things up. We start 2 really good post guys, but they're both defensive 5s. And so, like, trying to get to where, what's the right ball screen defense for them, what's the right ball screen defense for our team in terms of our rotations and some things that we would do if we don't switch. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Indiana takes about 50% of their field goal attempts from three-point range. And obviously it's a different makeup than Illinois, but what challenges does that team possess?
Yeah, no question. Their 2 leading scorers are guys that can do it off the catch, they can do it off the bounce, the great movement. Indiana runs really good actions for them in terms of, flare screens, cuts off of their flare screens, their slip ups, their pin downs, their staggers away, their staggers across the baseline, their ball screen action into pins. They run a lot of really good stuff for their 2 best scorers. It doesn't mean other people can't do it. I think Dorn, who started his first game the other day, had a really good game. I think he made 6 threes. He really adds another element, to them, because now you have 2 lights out, shooters, scorers, and Wilkerson and DeVries. Now you add Dorn in that mix. Alexis had a really good game against Rutgers with 6 blocks. And so it gives them the spacing that they want with 3 guys like that can really shoot the basketball. Not to say other players aren't good, because they are. I think Enright's a tough dude, plays hard, but he's smart. He's been around the game, knows what's going on, knows where the ball needs to be. You leave him alone, he'll stick it. You give him too much space, he'll drive in for layups. But he's got winning ways about him. Conroy is, been a very successful college player, can break you down, has quickness. You leave him alone, he'll stick it. Washington went to that triangle in 2, and the stats said that was a good move. And they make 5 straight threes to start the game. Like, it just kind of shows you, which we always talk to our players, everybody's good. Everybody at this level is good. Everybody, can make you pay, but that's not all their guys there. But they have a good mix of skill, and it really causes a lot of problems.
This is kind of about Illinois, but I think it applies to Indiana too, is when a team has this many shooters, on the floor, how hard is that to rotate? It seemed like a couple of those threes Illinois made were because you didn't want to leave Jake Davis in the corner. You couldn't rotate over to
Yeah, we were supposed to leave.
Thomas. Oh, you were
Yeah,
supposed to leave.
yeah, yeah. So the
And
whole thing in basketball.
UCLA Trent Perry too.
Yeah, the whole thing in basketball, that's different there. That's different because we had a couple rotations where we rotated to a non-shooter in UCLA and left Trent Perry open. And that's absolutely what we don't want to do. When you're trading an apple for an apple, you always take the first apple, right? When you're trading an apple for an orange, you bluff at that, you stay with the shooter, and then you live with the percentages there. It's kind of like at the end of the game, like with Donovan Dent. Donovan Dent, it's 4 for 26 from three. Like we had two really strong closeouts from big people because we got caught in rotations, and then he drove us and got layups. Then at the end of the game, it's a 6-point game with 2 minutes, and you really don't want it to get 2 possessions and give somebody a three, but yet he's not a 3-point shooter. We close out short, and he sticks a three. And so, like, sometimes you're just, you're up against that. But in rotations, when everybody can shoot, you always rotate and take that first guy. You always do. Now, sometimes when, like, you got to get to the end of a rotation, and now do I rotate to this guy and then leave my guy when he can't shoot and my guy can't? No, you do not do that. Now you just allow that last rotation guy, he's coming back into the fold. He's going to come back short. And if he hits it, then you live with it because the percentages say that's a better move.
Matt, with someone as accomplished as Fletch and everything he's done, when he's in a slump like this, is there a different way to just handle shooting-wise?
No, not really. Just just keep doing what you're doing. Take the shots that come your way. Keep working towards it. And no, but he'll be fine. The numbers show that. The numbers show that he's had tough stretches before, and then he doesn't bounce back. He ends up coming in the next 8, 9, 10 game stretch as the best shooter in the league. And that's who he is because the numbers say so. And no, he's just got to stay with it. The other night was just, I thought Omer played well, and I stayed with Omer.
Anything else?
How would you compare Wilkerson to some of the guards you faced your last couple of games?
Yeah. He's like any other like big time scorer, is that like he'll just go through the game and like start off and just get hot right away, and then like you're in for it, right? You're absolutely in for it. Or he'll just kind of get through the game, maybe not have as many looks or whatever, miss a couple or do whatever. It just takes one make for him. It just takes you fouling him, getting to the free throw line, hitting a three or whatever, and then just like now he's there. Where sometimes people like that score the basketball, that's not their case. It's like, hey, this just isn't their day. Like, even though he has had a couple games where he didn't score as much, but if you watch him like against Nebraska and like some of the shots that he made and how he made it against one of the best defenses in the country, like it's impressive. He's an impressive player. Obviously, he's made I think 10 threes in a game earlier in the season. So just a really good scorer, but it's got a good way about him. He's got a good sturdy base in terms of catching it, opening up, knocking down that shot, getting you on your heels, getting his step back, getting angles, drawing fouls, getting to his pull up, getting all the way to the rim. Sometimes you deal with scorers, sometimes you deal with guys that are more shooters. He's a little bit of both. Like he can hurt you in a lot of different ways.